Ready? Kia ora and welcome everybody to this meeting of the Central Otago District Council. We will start today with Karakia, led by Councillor Claridge.
Kia ora, I marina, kia whakatawhara kuri nimu tū moana, he hararahi I ngā tātou, haiti rangi ni, ara atau, ara mai, tātou I a tātou katoa, hui e, taiki e. May peace be widespread, may the sea be like brimstone, a pathway for us all this day. Let us show respect for each other, for one another, bind us together.
It's a very appropriate Karakia for today. Thank you, Emily. We have apologies from Martin and Sally. I'll move those, and Stu can second them. All those in favour? Aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And we now have public forum. Welcome to everybody in our public gallery today. We'll start the public forum with Carol Billins from Alexandra Community House. Welcome, Carol. Yep, come on up, have a seat. Floor's yours for 5 minutes.
Don't normally speak something so well scripted, but I knew I'd use up my 5 minutes very quickly otherwise. So I'll introduce myself first. I'm Carol Billins. I'm the manager of the Alexandra Community House, the secretary for the Alexandra Council of Social Services, and currently in the role of community connector at Central Otago RE. Just a little bit of who those tables are for people that run it here. The community house provides a focal point for nurturing and sustaining wellbeing of the people within that area through arts, education and social services. We currently have 15 organisations working from that facility, and we provide casual space for around another 160 organisations annually. So I feel very comfortable in the fact of saying we touch base with a lot of the community being part of that. Our value is very much our aim to accommodate community organisations that provide information services, activities to empower people, support their wellbeing, growth and creativity. We've been in existence for 13 years. The Alexandra Council Social Service, we're just a baby in comparison to that, and it's been providing services to Central Alexandra predominantly for the last 48 years. So she's a big, long, grounded organisation. The purpose is to promote communication, liaison and cooperation between members, identify social needs in our community, respond to them where possible and inform our community of those issues and the responses that we wish to have to those issues. The Council of Social Services is currently working on 3 main areas. One is housing. Our main body of work at the moment is that we formed the Central Otago Housing Group, which we had members of from Central Otago District Council. And our purpose there is to work towards steps to address improving housing stock right across the housing continuum and the affordability for our families and everybody in the community. Now, our second focus group is ageing in place. It's I hate to use the word seniors, but it's about our seniors, our people over 65. And the group needs to look at social cohesion opportunities, information education, and one of our key projects at the moment is building a behaviour house in Alexandra. Our third area is supporting mental health initiatives. The community connector role is something that's been in place since very early in the days of the COVID lockdown response. And the purpose was to support people and provide them with access to community information in connection to services that they may need, but were unaware of. Why I'm here today, though, is to give you a brief overview of the concern that we currently have with social wellbeing of our community. In the years that I've been at the Alexandra Community House, I've not seen the stress and pressure that has been out within the actual social services and within the community that supports. Our volumes of community need are rising dramatically and the service are at or above capacity. It's also happening at a time where a number of our social service organisations have had government funding contracts put on hold. There are groups that have been waiting since May to know if the contracts continue and if so, in what form. A change to social service funding as a whole is in process with the Social Impact Agency live from the 1st of July next week. I'm not saying whether that's positive or negative, it's just a change and it's very unknown therefore for all those social services that will be contracted through that stream of work. Best way for me to give you an idea of what it means to us with some quantitative information is to provide you some figures from the last 6 months. And this is from 6 of our organisations which work within the house, and it's only the areas that are easy for us to be able to provide the information from. So numbers from mid-January through to mid-June, so 6 months for the Central Otago District area only, excepting one which is the Cancer Society. So social work clientele over that period, which is long-term work with community members, there's 45 cases within that 6-month period. Budgeting and building financial capacity, people coming in financial hardship and needing support in that 6-month period is 357. Family violence cases are averaging 10 per week and have done since that last 6-month period. Elder abuse at that time period, we've had 20 cases of elder abuse, which is a little bit down from where we normally sit. But some of that has been due to changeover of staff, so it's just increasing again now. The support and services, particularly for our seniors community, 105 cases in the last 6 months, and community connection support, 105 cases over the last 6 months. The Cancer Society, which I said is a bit more grouped, it includes Queenstown Lakes. On average, they're receiving 20 adult referrals a month. That is the tip of the iceberg of cancer diagnosis, and it is about those people that have got to a stage where they need much more extra support. I just want to break that down slightly to give you an idea that the main organisation in that area is doing 50 cases a month. The spread of those, Alexander Basin 47%, Teviot Valley 21%, Cromwell 21%, Maniatoto 6%, and the remainder are outside of the district. Demographically, 55% of those people are renting homes, 25% of them own a home with a mortgage, 15% of them own freehold, only 1.2% of them are in what we consider public housing space, and we have 4% of people with no fixed abode, which other terms is homeless. Over that period of time, that took to 11 people homeless within that 6-month period. And it's in line with some work we did November, December last year, which showed 20 people at that stage were homeless in our community.
Sorry, Carol, that's the 5 minutes.
Sorry, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Those are quite astounding figures, and I think it would come as a surprise to many that we have that many homeless. A lot of our homeless are unseen. The ones that are seen certainly don't number 11, I wouldn't think, for most people. A lot of work went into that, thank you. Questions from councillors?
Yeah.
Neil and then Ian.
Some of the statistics and data you're referring to, is that like a trending type situation, or is it one that goes up and down and it's slowly always climbing, or is it?
It's significantly trending.
Yeah.
It has been probably for the last 3 years, but I would say at the moment it's up in the last 6 months.
Yeah. It
has increased dramatically, and there's no sense of feeling that that's coming back down.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Ian and then Manu.
Yeah, this is an Abbeyfield house.
Abbeyfield House is a affordable renting situation. It's best term for it is a boarding house. And that boarding house can take 14 units. So would meet the needs of 14 people who are paying rent to stay there versus having to spend equity to actually go into a facility that may be inferior for them. So it's another choice in the market for older people, and a choice where they don't have a lot of equity to get into another option. But it ensures that the rent they're paying pays for their food, their utilities, the entire operational cost of the
I was just going to short programs in every
We are hopefully this close to having a agreement with the landowner for purchasing the property. And we've been working with a fantastic local landowner to do so, so I'm really grateful for that. And at that stage, we will be starting the process of raising just over $4 million for that to happen. So if we're working with funders as well.
You just have to only get people, it's like the people.
We can make sure they have food in their belly. We can make sure that they are safe for a short term and try and get them into some emergency care. Some of that is this may sound a bit silly, but in 3 cases I can think of specifically in my head, we have made sure that their car is warmer so that they can be warmer whilst they survive.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, Carol. I really appreciate you coming along today and giving us that information.
I have one sentence.
Go on.
My one thing, as well as giving the information, is that I really just ask that we all ask ourselves that question. When we're making a decision, what's this going to do for our social pillar in our community? And that's all of us asking the question.
Thanks, Carol. Well, next we have Stan Randall, President of Grey Power Central Otago. Welcome, Stan.
Well, we had a public meeting on Saturday. We had about 180 people there. We passed a motion, which I'll read out to you. The Grey Power and ratepayers in the Central Otago District move that rate increases each year for the Central Otago District should be limited to the rate of inflation, which for this financial year would be set no greater than 4%. And so that was put to the meeting, and there was considerable discussion, and eventually it was put to the vote. There was about 4 or 5 people who voted against it, and there was about 8 abstentions, but of the total, everybody voted in favour that that motion be passed. And so the question here is that what do they want from the motion? So they wanted the motion to go to the council to basically be a trigger to express their concerns. And so the question is, what was the motion expected to achieve? That's one thing. Another question, why were so many ratepayers giving up their afternoon, of their weekend break, to listen to and express their concern? And what do the ratepayers hope to achieve? I mean, what's the whole point of all of this particular activity? Well, the council system runs on a not-for-profit basis. It's not the assets that they have don't make any money. And the background behind that type of thing is this. This is what we understand the system works. The council works in 2 sections. There's the elected councillors, who are the representatives, and the mayor. They are not the business people. The business skills are the employed staff, the CEO, the managers who are here appointed and things like that. Now, we see it as this. It is the job of the elected councillors to represent the community. The elected councillors are a microcosm of the community. And so it is not their job, for example, to design water structures and things like that. And it's not to put their personal views. They have personal views. They don't put their personal views as community views. However, it is the responsibility of the employed staff. It is the job of the CEO, who is well paid, and his job is to plan and manage and communicate and to employ people to operators operated the system. But what we think has happened is this. The CEO and the general bureaucracy have essentially taken over and run the system in a way, and a kind of like as if they own the ship. That's the kind of impression that it is. And so, first thing we want to say is this. They wanted the motion to be immediately sent to the council, I said before, and the fact that proposed percentage rate increase is simply too high. In fact, they have discovered that the published 18% increase is not actually correct. 23% plus is the rate increase for many. So in a way, they feel they've been misinformed. They deliver 38. They want a more comprehensive description than just receiving services we deliver. 38 services, $10 a day per property, $3,650 per property per year. That's the kind of rate management we've got. But the question is, who is we? And that's the kind of impression that we've got. And this is what I was saying before. The ratepayers are putting the bill and they want to know what services they, the community, must have and how much these services will cost. And of the 38 services, they can't find out except by a very broad set of headings.
Stan, that's the 5 minutes. Can you
Well,
have a
if you want
got a
to
final
speak
point?
on behalf of the other 180 communities, then it's not going to take 5 minutes. And if that's the way the system works, it is typifies the very essence of the problem that the ratepayers are concerned about, because they hold these meetings, they go along, they listen, and nothing happens. So I've spent some considerable time putting this together, and I could photocopy it off and mail it to you to get the message, because I have had so much feedback from the people after that meeting to say, we want to know about this, and we want to know about that, and clearly you guys aren't interested. And
We're
that's
absolutely interested, Stan, but you do know that today we have a meeting where we have to make a decision. Feel free to email that, and that will certainly go to all elected members and to the elected member, the executive leadership team.
All I can say is there'll be repercussions.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Stan. In the news today, we see the DCC going out with a 17.5% rate increase, but that's alongside a $28.5 million deficit, which by my rough figures would be about 180 grand a year in interest. We've got Gore District Council going out at 21.4. We've got West Coast Regional going out at 27%. So this, what I'd put to you and your members is that this is a problem with the system that we're operating under that has been recognised as being broken, but it is not a Central Otago District Council specific issue. But there are three things that, two have been considered and one may be considered for their long-term plan. And I want to know Grey Power's views on this through you. We could technically, and we have considered whether or not to run at a deficit in order to achieve lower rates. So if we were to run at a deficit to get to your 4%, we would be borrowing $8 million at about $60,000 interest to do that for this year, which would then have to be accounted for next year. So on that one, what's your view on that?
Yes, well, let's go back and put it the other way around. If you go and say that you're going to get $3,000 per ratepayer, and you finish up with, say, 15,000 ratepayers, and then you can get a total income, I'll put it to you. There is the money to run the community. What can you deliver?
Okay, that's a nice rhetoric to hear, but the reality that we're living in, and the reality that I've demonstrated to you by quoting just a number of the other councils around us that are facing double-digit and bigger rates increases than us. That's the reality we have to live in. That's the reality we're having to work in. So what I'm asking you, just if I can get the answer to the question, what's Grey Power's view on running at a deficit in order to achieve a 4% rates rise?
We haven't got the information to make that decision.
Well, hypothetically, then. I mean, as a matter of principle, should we run at a deficit this year in order to achieve a 4%
That's
ratio?
that question.
Okay, fair enough.
Simply because you guys have been all full time. This is your job, 40 hours a week, and you saying that we come out to the meetings, we don't get the information we want, and then we have to make some decisions. And the point is, it's all back to front. The point is, why don't you guys do what all of the ratepayers are doing? Let's give you a wee.
No, Stan, sorry, your time's over. I did have some questions that I wanted answers to, and you're not willing to give an answer. I mean, quite realistically, there are councils that are running a deficit in order to lower the rates. Is that something that you think, in a hypothetical sense, without having to go into all the details, is that something that you think is?
Tell us, for goodness sake, what services are going to be lost?
Well, there wouldn't be, but we'd run a debt of $8 million to do it. No,
You're tell us, you should say, look.
we haven't cut services
You
here.
will not, you've got 28 services, and you won't tell us which ones will lose. If you do, you went and said, we've saved $10 million. If you haven't said what services will be lost,
Well, there won't be any.
that's the whole point.
No. Anyone else got any questions?
Yeah, I do. Well, we live where I represent, the Minimisation. We've got a massive road and infrastructure, and it comes under pressure. We're just seeing that happening in Gisborne today. But if we go to 4%, and I'm just looking at figures from the Target South and Regional Transport meeting about Pressure the other day, we've applied the next 3-year funding for 45 million. The allocation they've given is 4 million short. We've asked for restructuring and structural improvements, which is bridges and structural improvements. We're down $1.5 million in the funding from the other side of the government. So do we have to trim in other regions to have the 4%, or do we have to keep a status quo and maintain?
But why don't you go and say, who are you going to sacrifice for the trouble? Because if you go and look at the people, few thousand people who are only getting $400 a week in superannuation. And the point is that when Matthew did the research, they found that they basically were spending more than $900 more to live a normal life. Now you're going to tell those people that that's their lot, that's what life's about in this region. Is that what you're going to tell them?
Well,
Because if you want your roads built, this is more important than the people.
There's a lot of people in this community are very happy with the infrastructure that's been happening with water coming down Johnson Road, happy with Cromwell, happy with Benefit, happy with the new facilities and the extreme work that's gone into it. So who has to sacrifice?
That's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But the point is this, you be aware of the people who can't afford to pay those rates. And what did they do in Queenstown? They went and took $3,000 out of the guy's account, and he hasn't got any money to pay his groceries. I mean, the point is that there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, but you are not looking at the implication on several thousand people. And you're going to say, look, that's bad luck.
Yeah,
I'll
challenge that. We look at every of the 15,500 ratepayers, every meeting, we look at the whole district and every aspect of it. The Minimisation is one of the, well, it's got a lot of pensioners. It's both higher percentage probably than anywhere else.
And we'll
We do look at that.
Did you tell them all before that the people who are homeless here, will they still be homeless in 6 months' time?
I can't answer.
I know you don't answer that because you don't really know and you don't really care because you're not.
Stan, I'm going to haul you in there to say that this group don't care when we're facing a situation which we've wrestled with for the last year, which every other council in the country is facing. To say we don't care is hurtful and I won't tolerate it. All right.
Yeah,
We've got solo parents around this table. We've got pensioners around this table. We've got renters around this table. We all care. Any other questions for Stan?
No.
No, thank you, Stan. Jerry Echo.
Good morning, councillors, and may I acknowledge the people who have come out this morning to show their concerns. I have a written piece here, but after listening to what Stan and the responses, there is just so much that should be said, and I'm a bit saddened that there is not an hour or three full council meetings where members of the public can come along and have their say and put their point of view across, rather than having to compete with everybody else in a very short space of time. And I fully accept that this is not just a Central Otago issue. Absolutely fully accept that. And I mentioned that as the chair that I was invited on Saturday. It is not just a Central Otago issue. And I suppose in some respects I feel some responsibility, because I sat on a 2000 thing called a 2002 local government bill 20 years ago and told them then that the system is broken. And what you are doing is adding to breaking the system. It has taken a decade or two to get to this stage where I don't know what is happening further north in terms of people showing their concerns, but there is massive anxiety, and that's very clear. I've been out of directly in the political system for a long time, but I still get people ringing saying, what the hell can we do? And all they can say is, email you people. I prefer to talk to people directly rather than through a piece of paper. But I would say this to you, councillors, you simply cannot be willfully blind to the harm that you may choose to do with the increases that you are here to discuss and probably pass. It's also clear to me that the 20% increase or thereabouts, we can talk around that issue, will be compounded each year. It gets worse and worse and worse. And the country itself, inability to pay for these things through superannuation and so on, is lessened because of our poor productivity. And I certainly hope that a councillor will propose an amendment to this increase today to reassess what you're proposing due to the unaffordability to so many people. And I say to you that, as Stan has alluded, you must accept your responsibilities firstly to the people, not to the council. Not to the well-being of the council, but to the people you represent. At a time of hardship for so many, the council must cut its cloth accordingly. And as I understand it, the council intends to acquire an extra 10 million or around $650 odd per household. I think the council is in a relatively or very strong financial position. It's not that long ago the council had no debt. No debt. And that is a reflection of very poor financial management, quite frankly. I'll allude to that in a moment or two. The council is in a strong position, current debt around 2.5% of, it costs you 2.5% of your $86 million revenue. It's not a lot at all. It's a wide, huge increases. Now I understand what councillors have been saying and have been saying for so long and all over the country, that you cannot continue to kick issues down the road. Understand it. What I say to you this today, that it's better to kick the can down the road than ratepayers down the road. Because some ratepayers will not be able to afford to live in Central Otago or in Alexandria. So they have to go to elsewhere where housing is cheaper and maybe rates are cheaper. And you cannot do that to people who have paid rates all their life, who have paid tax all their lives, paid off their home to take out another mortgage or something of that nature. You simply can't do that. Intergenerational debt. I understand some of you might think this is not such a good idea. It's a totally conventional way of financing large infrastructure. Totally conventional. Intergenerational debt promotes fairness and equity and entirely sensible, and it's entirely orthodox. It's not relevant, it's entirely orthodox management, so that when the population of this area being so popular is going to increase significantly, I think we all understand that, over the next decade. So the capacity to handle debt is significantly increased as we perhaps double populations. Look at Cromwell, look at how that's surging here. Never mind the Queenstown to the Wallachies, they're self-evident. But even this town could well surge as people get away from floods, and so that's what we've been alluded to. And I can see
5
that-
minutes, Jerry, if you could give your finals.
Yeah, I'm a bit stand, no, not here. 5 minutes is insultingly bad.
That's fine.
Insultingly bad, but I understand you've got work to do, but I repeat, and my plea to you is, please do not be willfully blind to what people behind me and people who have no doubt been in touch with you are saying to this council today. You have the power, you have the authority, and I would like to see one or two of you resign. Absolutely, I would convene that. If you have the capacity or wanted to resign because you are representing the people and are reflecting that resignation.
Thank you, Jerry. I've got a question myself before I come to Stu. I saw your hand up. You said that you would like a council meeting where the public can come and put their views across. You spoke at our submissions hearing meeting a month ago, which was exactly that. And we scheduled as much time to take as there were people wanting to hear. So you were there. We did do exactly that. So I'm a bit confused as to why you're saying we didn't.
What again?
You said at the start of your speech, your talk, that you would like a council meeting where the public can come and put their views across. We did that. We had the submissions meeting a month ago that you came and spoke at. And that was scheduled for as long as it needed to hear as many people who wanted to come. So I'm a bit lost as to why.
Well, I would put it this way too. It takes quite a lot for people to come to a meeting.
Agreed.
And protest or just and speak. Because you don't want to constantly repeat. I've been to the Saturday meeting and I've been to the submission process, and they're completely not a waste of time.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You gave us little scraps of paper, Mr. Mayor, scraps of paper at the central stories to write our concerns down on. It's.
Stu, you have a question?
Yeah, I wrote down 3 or 4 things there, and actually then I wrote down you've answered the question. Intergenerational funding. That's what we're doing with the water. The debt we've got is minimal because possibly, and I'll talk about good friends of mine, the late Barry Becker and these guys didn't do enough infrastructure spending. They had no debt. They weren't replacing bridges at the rate they should have been, or footpaths or roading or drainage or whatever. But we have put intergenerational debt in. That's why you've opened up Dunstan Road for the water and that again. And I think that's massively. And the question is who pays? You can't labour it all on the grey power area. My parents have paid their rates all their lives. They shouldn't have to pay for the future as well. So intergenerational debt, I totally answer that. Debt funding, well, it's the same thing. We're funding through debt some of that stuff. Whether you look at bridges, whether we look at those, I don't know. The values of property in Ranfurly have doubled in the last 3 years. So we're living in Central Otago financially, who have been well and truly rewarded. And it's up to us to make sure that our swimming pools, our grandchildren, and Mokapoona come back here for something. We struggle to get teachers in Ranfurly. We struggle to get principals. We struggle sometimes to get CEOs. We've got to be a province that is equal to the rest. We won't attract the young. We won't attract people. So I think we're doing a very good job of that. The government rules, I hate them too. We're in farming or agriculture and business. Most people are in some shape or form. Having to use the card.
Is this a lecture or is this a question?
Point, you got a
Take everything into account for every generation. And everyone on big, everyone has had every opportunity to have a say through the process. The elected members, Tracy and I are quite approaching. Everyone is approaching. So you do have a say. And I don't really like the idea that we're not, the ratepayers don't. Because the might corner, they definitely come out and bat and have a go.
No, I haven't heard a question though. Neil, do you have a question, Neil?
Yeah, I do, Jerry. The debate around the intergenerational side of things aside, I think I've heard you tell us that it was not responsible to respond now to the here and now costs. And the people who told us to kick the can down the road, did I hear that correctly?
The question was again?
I said, did I, in simple terms, did I hear you say to us, kick the can down the road is the right thing to do?
No. Well, let me put it this way. There are two buildings going to be put up in Otago. It's going to put $100 million into those two buildings. One is the ORC building in Dunedin, and the other one is your building in Cromwell. Now, I'm not aware entirely of how all that funding has taken place, but is that your priority? 100 million, sorry, on two buildings?
Well, one of them has nothing to do with this council. And the other one, our community says that that's what they want.
Look, I'm sure they're needed. But in my life, and I'm sure in yours too, Councillor Gillespie, you have to make trade-offs. You have to make priorities as to whether you, as I was saying to one person earlier, you go to a supermarket, whether you buy a steak or a big block of cheese and a block of ice cream or something for the kids. You make decisions on your priorities. And the priorities for people today with the COVID problem, the inflation problem, their poor productivity, we have to reassess. And I, as I mentioned in my submission, you live and cut your cloth, the old, is it cut your suit according to the cloth or cut your cloth according to the suit? In one or the other. It doesn't really matter. And it is so distressing to me personally to see so many millions of dollars being spent on some years ago in not fixing the pipes in Wellington, but they'll fix the lovely old buildings or do other things. The priorities for council should always be the water and the sewerage and the, you know, boring fundamental stuff, not building buildings.
Which 80% of our cost and our lift and our rates is in all those three infrastructure things exactly you've done. 83% of the cost lift we've got is coming in water, roading and waste.
Yeah.
And waste has changed. It's a different.
Well, I've said before, Mr. Duncan, that it's not just this council that's the problem. It is the failure of the system since I've been involved, since 2002, where not enough recognition was given to the very things you've talked about in your remote areas. And I know a little bit about the Manitoba as well, through family connections, of course. But it's the failure with the power of general confidence that gave foolish people in so many councils all over this country to say, oh, let's build this and let's build monuments to ourselves. That's the problem. And I have written 2,500 words to the minister, and I'm sure it went straight into the shredder.
Actually, with Minister Brown, I don't think
Minister Brown.
he's well recognised for reading everything, and I've noticed that myself. Neil, did you have a follow-up question? Then I'll come to Tony.
Yeah, thanks. Jerry, you said about community and representing what the community wants. But if I sit here and I've got part of the community saying I want this and part saying I don't want that, which one's right? And that's in the end of the day when I sit here and say I'm charged with making a decision, it's not going to be popular.
Look, personally, and I'm here representing myself. I wouldn't dare represent my wife's opinion on so many matters. I'm representing myself, but I think what I'm trying to say is that so many of us would like to think that at this meeting today, you've actually listened to us and reduced from 20-something%, that you've actually listened to us and gone back and made another go to reflect the concern and the cost of living and the ability to pay. We're living beyond our means, not just as a community, as a country. We're living far beyond our means, and we only got to look at hospital rebuild or new hospitals or mental health and cancer treatments and all of the things. But I'll just finally say this.
No, hang on, I've got another question from Councillor Allen.
There was a
sorry, Jerry, you've had your 5 minutes. You're here to answer our questions. I'm giving a lot of leniency.
question.
I've got a question for you, Mr. Eckhoff. Yes. You said that you were involved in 2002 in the review of the legislation and that you had pointed out then that there were serious flaws in it, which were going to lead to a broken system, which you have seen come about over the last 20 years. What do you think the solution is for this council today to rectify decades of issue?
Oh, I think I'm realistic, councillor, to recognise that you ain't going to solve our problems today. I would go away perhaps a little happier if you made some movement towards recognising the stress that is self-evident. You know, what is it? To make a few hearts beat a little easier.
And how do you
The decision
propose,
that you have made.
how do you propose we do that? Recognising that, as you said, this is decades of underinvestment, by your words, and not taking on debt. How do you propose we do that without making your grandchildren pay for the past?
Well, I think our grandchildren should pay for many things. Absolutely, they should. They're not going to get a free ride from me or from anybody else. Of course, they should pay. Down the line, when the pipes come in tomorrow or next time, and they're benefiting from that in 20 years' time or 30 years' time, of course they should be paying something towards that. Look, I wish I knew more, and I wish I had more answers to obvious things that you know, how to fix things, but. There was an expression that was told to me by a councillor, I'm sure, but it was somewhere in the North Island, and he said, my attitude and the attitude of my council is, we are here to help. What can we do to help? You're a new entrant to this town. What can we do to help?
Any further questions, councillors? Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate your time as ever. And our final speaker today to the public forum, welcome Glenda Chapman. Sure, Glenda.
Just 3 points I'd like to raise. I understand that certain projects are carried over from one year to the next. Are there any non-essential, would like to have items on the list that can be carried over for another year so the rates would not be so high? So for instance, I hear that 38,000 for a feasibility study for a cycle trail was given by the council. Is that really in, should that council really be involved in giving money to things like that? How many other things like this is the council supporting, and should they be? The next thing, it has been said that too much control is given to the Green Party and the Maori Party. Is there an option regarding this? How much does this affect, delay or influence council decisions? And the final thing, are there any people waiting for a council flat?
Okay, thank you, Glenda. Carryovers. So we do have carryovers, obviously, because stuff doesn't get done. But Peter, there was quite a number in that 18% that was reached, the things that weren't necessary.
So we did, when we did review the budgets for the preparation and originally for the long-term plan, when we deferred the long-term plan 12 months and now it's the annual plan. So in that process, we did strip out of the budgets, working through it line by line through our budget managers and the group managers, probably around $10 million. And so where we've landed and in terms of the budget going ahead for next year is the proposition today. But we certainly did strip out quite a lot of cost from the business. And we use this year, we're currently in this current financial year, which finishes in a few days' time, as the baseline. So any deviation from the baseline needed to be justified. In some cases, when you have a $500,000 increase in electricity, you know, there was a large chunk of that 18%, which is we have no discretion over. We must pay insurance, electricity costs, and so on and so on. And as one of the councillors mentioned, the 3 biggest costs in the waters, in our roading, and in our waste management. In terms of carryovers, if money is carried over, this council is quite scrupulous on that one. If money is carried over, it needs to be justified if it's carried over for a specific task. If it's not, it goes into the general reserve. And then the general reserves are usually used to offset rate increases in other years because it's money we've already rated for our community. It's held in the reserve, and you would apply that to help reduce costs to the community going forward.
So that's the 38,000 for the cycle.
So the 38,000 proposition for the cycleway, remembering that tourism, and that is probably our third biggest sector here in our economy, construction, agriculture, horticulture and tourism. So an investment like that makes a significant difference, particularly when you consider where the trails are going and what they're going to open up for this community. And the benefit we are getting across Central Otago by being an active participant in those cycle trail networks.
I think there was a Cromwell Community Board grant. Do any of the Cromwell councillors wish to speak to that?
Yeah, I think picking up what Peter was saying about the importance of that, the community board recognised that was an important part of the growth and for community outcomes, and the money was available already to allocate, and decided to proceed with that. And again, I guess it reflects the option of not doing it means what else don't you get done that will benefit the community and those that are there and those that will come. So that was I think the guts of the decision around that.
So it's actually been proven that we do benefit from cycle trails.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the one about the Green Party and the Maori Party.
Could you expand on that, please? Because
No, I can't. It was just mentioned at a meeting the other day.
I think that was you, Stu, not that I'm inviting you to address this. That was Local Government New Zealand, I think, not this council. I think the only people who would be more surprised to hear that would be the Green and the Maori Party, to think that they have a whole lot of sway here. No.
Like
Oh,
when land is held up from not being able to be dealt with, land that's available for people to build on. Maoris are involved in that, aren't they? But Ngāi groups like that.
look, different sectors have different people that speak and so forth. So you could say Federated Farmers might hold things up because they want to be heard on different projects, or whoever. I'm making those names up. But in terms of that's outside the process of this council. If there is a water scheme that's going to go in, then Ngāi Tahu may have a view on that, but that's not the Green Party. Sorry, that's not the Māori Party. So it's quite different things, but they are all part of processes that come out of Wellington that we're beholden to, not direct to us. And the other one, people waiting for council flats, we do have a waiting list. Louise, do you have a, or David?
I'm just trying to find out a number, but we do have people waiting for elderly inclusions housing units.
I'm a wee bit concerned then, because I do know of at least one flat that has been unoccupied for 7 months or more.
Is it appropriate for me to?
Please, because I'd be interested in why that is myself.
I don't know specifically what you're talking about, but we have a criteria for that people apply for a unit. And in some areas there's more demand than others. And so in some areas we will have a waiting list, but sometimes we hold vacancies because there is no interest in the units. And sometimes while we have those vacancies, we do the refurbishments. So I'm happy to have a chat to you on specific details if you like to.
And I can confirm that was what we got the last time we had the update from Janice, was that sometimes a flat is offered, but the first person, for argument's sake, on the waiting list doesn't want a flat in that area or was waiting for a larger flat, and they've chosen not to take the one that was available and to remain on the waiting list for their preferred option to come up. So it does move through that way as well.
But I've taken a note. I'm going to follow up on that because there would need to be a good reason on that.
And our occupancy rate of our elderly pension and accommodation is upwards of 95%. So we actually have a really high occupancy, which means that when they become available, they are relatively turned over pretty quickly, as long as there's a bit of refurbishment that might be required.
I know this flat is being refurbished, but 7 months, taking that long to do it.
Right. I'll come back to you on that one, Glenda. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Right, councillors, that brings us to our agenda proper. Page 6 is the confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting. If somebody who was there would like to move those, Tamer, thank you. And seconded, Ian, any discussion on those? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Councillors, of course, are aware of their declarations. They need to be regularly updated and in decision making to look at their place and whether it is appropriate. Now we have, I hope, the Community Board Chair report. We are running a little bit late. Do we have?
I'll also give him a call.
Righto.
He's struggling to get on with the computer.
Okay, we're just going to pause briefly while we try to get hold of Robert, because I don't want to delay him any further. We're already a bit later than expected.
Hey, I put you on speaker.
Just listen to it.
Okay, you're on speaker.
Hello.
Righto.
Right.
Tim,
Right, sorry, I thought that might take a bit longer. Hello, Robert. Who was where?
He's
Oh,
on.
he's on the phone. Robert, okay, you're on the phone, Robert, so speak up nice and loud. Great to hear from you.
Oh, g'day, Tim. You there?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, thanks for the chance to speak. We're all quite happy down here at the moment. I think it was good to see the council endorsing our Maniototo spelling. But we don't have too many issues at the moment, which is probably more we talked about was at the meeting the other week was knowing what's happening in the district when it's happening or before it happens, rather than walking down the street and seeing stuff getting dug up. Roading is always an issue. It's very wet at the moment with roads. It'd be good to see engineers out actually having a bit of a look to see what the problems are. I appreciate that everyone's busy at this time of the year doing other stuff. It'd be good to see coming out in adverse weather conditions having a look. I haven't got too much more to add at the moment.
All right, thanks, Robert. Just if anyone's got any questions for the chair of the Maniototo board, I'd suggest you shout them out now. All right, excellent. As ever, Robert, great to hear from you and keep up the great work that you do both on the board and within your part of our district. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Rob.
Righty ho. So that now brings us to, with the permission of the group, which I'm sure will be forthcoming, the annual plan, the adoption of the 24-25 annual plan, which is on page 191. Saskia, Donna, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. John and I have a few very quick before we come up for questions. So you haven't taken through the draft and you've paid for adoption today. You'll note here is an average increase in the taking from 3 to 6. I think it's different. This average is much higher, of course, in our residential areas. So our 4 main towns, that varies between 25 and 31%. That has really been driven by the services provided to our towns. So that is our 3 rivers and our curbside rubbish collection have seen quite marked increases, driven by inflation and also by government requirements. So we do note the impact on the residential areas there. So today we are asking you to formally adopt the annual plans that we've got between rates you can explain it there. We're asking you to adopt the attached fees and charges. There are some increases across the board here, really to reflect the increases that we are seeing in those activities. We're also asking you to adopt the due dates for payment of the rates, and that includes the general rates and the winter rates, and set the dates for penalties. Just to note, these resolutions have been checked by our lawyer and the units have already been included in what we see today. We have one additional amendment, just to note that will require a additional resolution there. So when we were checking the budgets, we did note we forgot to take out $25,000 that you had directed us to, that was within the PCO budgets. Now, the best way for us to deal with this today is to forecast that out of the budgets and essentially carry that forward. So what that means is we won't be charging our ratepayers for $25,000 in the next financial year. The other way to deal with it would be to go away and redo the budgets and present them back to you and hold an extraordinary meeting. It is such a minor overall percentage rate. Today we do recommend that we do retail parts of our. We have it as a formal recommendation, it won't get lost when it's used. So, Bill and I have to take.
Thank you. So I am going to ask councillors their views in an overall sense, but before we do that, are there questions first? Neil.
Only because it just caught my eye is that within the recommendations we're considering today, it's noted that the rates that are in the report are GST inclusive, but I am correct to say that all of the figures for the budget for the annual plan are GST exclusive.
So the rating policy is GST inclusive.
Yes.
Yeah, budget.
That could get confusing.
That can get a little bit confusing, but I think that's like if you go out to the market and say you're going to sell a car for $10,000, you say whether it's interest and that's worth it. And majority of our ratepayers don't think cheese.
Yeah. That's just something it's probably been there before, never noticed it. It's just an observation that I picked up. So thank you for confirming what I thought. I hate to assume that and be wrong.
No, we know what assume stands for. Ian,
The question on page 391. Regarding the development contributions. Why are they significantly different or different events for waste repair?
So our development contributions, but I do have a couple of ways that can help me answer this. They are, the formula for them is based on the planned capital works in each area. So if you had a lot of works, say at Cromwell, then we would be charging that through. So it does depend on what is in the long-term plan.
No, that's correct. So the development contributions can fund the growth portion of the capital expenditure. So it's worked out on that capital program, the growth portion. And that's, levied on developments.
What is that done for water and wastewater, but not for roading?
It is done for roading.
The roading development contribution is standard.
And it was district-wide funded. So that's how that applies.
But this water and waste not also district-wide funded?
Yes, it is. The contribution has to be levied on the area of the capital works. That's a good question. I would need to check on the road.
I think we just go on some. But the water and wastewater is not every township does actually have those activities. Whereas with the road, it's just pure work. So really imagine the whole district rather than
Amos just mentioned, you said Julie updated on this last time, and it's a legal requirement for the Three Waters to be plant-based, plant-based, not
Actual cost for that area, wasn't it?
Yes, normally by catchment.
Yeah, so we don't have a choice. Right.
Yeah, just as the is part of the long-term plan. And so we can go further detail.
Yeah, good reviewing the policy and come back to that.
The key thing to me is that said, it does seem counterintuitive to have development contributions that are paid for by the scheme, but yet the way we fund the running and operating of those schemes is not the same way. But I'm sure as part of the review of the development contributions, when we do the long-term plan, we can pick it up and make sure what the issue is.
Yeah, it's a legal requirement, and that's probably why it's an anomaly to our districtisation.
I've got a funny feeling
It would seem to be
It is.
at odds with what we're trying to achieve.
It has to be done by catchment, and each catchment's different. So Cromwell's different from Ormeco, so on and so on. So yeah, it has to be considered on that sort of basis.
Other questions, Sarah?
Can I ask about the penalty on rates payment? We've heard from people that are obviously then at this point they're not able to pay the rates that are coming up. Understanding that the discussion we've had, where we're sitting, I'm comfortable that where we're heading with that is going to put people under pressure. Is it pretty tone deaf to then say, we understand you can't pay them, we hear you, we're still going to go ahead with our rates rise, but then we're going to compound that by adding penalties?
But if
Is there anything we can do around it? Like, what do we do if somebody can't pay the rates and they can't pay the rates? Are we just making the problem worse by adding a penalty to it? Because not only can they not pay the rates, they can't pay the penalty either. But do we get that money back?
So
Yeah, we first try obviously pay the thing.
Yeah.
With the person, because we don't want them to get into a situation where they end up with a massive bill with us. And within our delegations, there's some ability for me to waive penalties. For example, if there's a genuine medical event or something like that, or if they move to a direct debit. So there is some criteria can apply. It is limited to be clear, but definitely always our first go-to is to have a conversation and enter into a payment plan with them, because we don't want to get down the track where it's spend lots of interest in there, actually thinking about,
There would also be the postponement of rates that we have in our toolkit as well,
Yeah.
would be part of that discussion.
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember, Sarah, that if somebody's not paying their rates, and I get your point, we know that this is causing people harm. But if they're not paying it, then we technically go into the deficit, everyone else is paying for it and paying for the interest. It's an unwinnable situation at the moment.
It's more about, I think, for me, it's that we're showing that we're not just going to say, we understand you can't pay it, but we're still going to start the bill, you know, I mean, that's.
Yeah, we will work. The expectation of this table is that people will be working with very closely.
There's going to be a lot more people in that position. That's inevitable. And I just think it's time to not recognise that and say, look, the penalties really are less. We're not just say, well, you can't pay it, we're going to charge you another 5% and 10%, another, we're going to keep them down in that. And working on it before we apply a penalty and then removing the penalty. It would be really good to be proactive rather than backstopping that. I know we need the money, that I get that, but.
And I think highlighting too, that if people are feeling like this is going to be a problem, to front foot it and come and have that discussion with us about what options are available to them.
Yeah, because there are things that we can do. No, that isn't, we're not here just to take more money. That's not the point, is it?
And just clarification of the quality for the rates rebate. Each point so is it the DIA rate rebate that we bring to council code?
Yes, so yeah, it is, and I forget off the top of my head, I think it's about, anyone has less than 40,000. And it is a tiered amount, but you can get a full rebate without that. So I don't quite got the numbers, it's like, you can get up to 750,000, and how that scheme operates is that, our ratepayers apply to us, and basically we'll, if they qualify, we've actually assigned if they're off this week, then we give them a credit back, and then we deal with the central government, to deal and claim that money back. So it's all done via us. It is, to be fair, it is quite a low annual income to be eligible for that full rebate.
But it's a treatment,
100%. Yeah.
Just to note, in the space of the rates rebates, this council supported a remit from Dunedin City Council that LGNZ put more pressure on the government to raise both the level of the rebate and lower the point that you can receive.
Increase them.
Increase.
Yeah, increase the rebate, but lower the threshold. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's slightly wrong. So if we take our average so household income of 30,000 would see the full rebate of 750. If you have a household income of set on 46,000, you can claim about 240.
So Neil's quite right, it's to raise the threshold that you can have before you get.
Raise the threshold, increase the benefit.
That's it, thank you.
Two increases.
Yeah.
Gotta go up.
Yeah. Further questions, councillors? All right, on that basis, this is a massive decision, obviously, and there's been a great deal of community interest and community interest, which is totally understandable. So I want to give every councillor a chance to speak. And in case I forget at the end, I'm going to go to Sally first, who isn't here, but she did ask that I do say that she's read through the submissions and noted the number received from the Teviot, of course, where she stands. I understand that this rates increase will have an impact on our community as it will across the district. With this in mind, I made a recommendation at the Teviot Valley deliberations meeting to remove the King George Park playground upgrade from this annual plan, and fully supported the reducing of the grants budget back to 5,200 to help soften the rates increase in the Teviot. So I'll just I'll come to my deputy mayor first. Neil, what are your thoughts? Anything? I mean, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to, councillors, but I'm aware that it's often me that's quoted in the paper, so I want to give everyone else a go.
Yeah, it's never easy when you're looking at the annual plan or long-term plan, because typically there's always going to be increases. And I guess what we're faced with now is quite unprecedented, certainly in the time that I've been sitting at this table. The prospect of kicking it down the road and not responding to it now is one that we've heard from people saying you should be thinking about that. And I understand that we should be thinking about it, but equally we've got to think about the future as well and what happens next. And the reality is, no matter how you do it, it's not going to get cheaper. The costs are always going to be there and they're going to come back. So eventually you've got to find the time when you actually have to make the increase. And all I know is that if you put it off, the increase will be only bigger and it will be harder. It's not going to get any easier. I'm always mindful of the fact that generally I hear from people about what they want us to do. And I don't hear much about what it is they don't want us to do. We hear some of that nice stuff, and we can talk about the economic development, tourism. You could look at libraries, you look at swimming pools. There's always people out there that will say the other sort of things that we shouldn't be involved in. But I don't think we hear an overwhelming united view from our community about what we should and shouldn't be doing. And in an annual plan year, of course, it's always difficult to make significant changes to the level of service. So I look at this and go, if we want to maintain the levels of service that the community currently experience, as well as meet all the legislative requirements we've got, we have a little bit no choice to do this. Gives me no satisfaction whatsoever. And I can see that will affect me as well. It affects everybody and it'll affect us all differently. And for those that will struggle, we're resilient people, and I think we will look at ways of trying to help each other as a council and as a community to get through what it is. So yeah, I think it's not an easy decision that we'll make today, but I think we've done a really good job at looking at the options, and the recommendations are there before us, and we'll come to a decision.
Thanks, Neil. Stu.
Yeah. It's a great council. This is in the time I've been here, it's a very, very good council. We do listen. It's tough on everyone, but they have to be done. Like, you can't keep kicking bridges down the road. Rules have changed, laws have changed, inflation's come along, COVID got in the middle, but we have to do it. It created a great little place for our grandchildren. I'm just reading an article here. The gold miners in the Danzigs Pass Hotel built in 1862. We've got to make the same changes as the last China and Joe Sun did in 1928. We've got to keep going forward. We've got to keep new water supplies. Look at the growth. The growth's going to be huge. Central Target is a great place now, and it will continue to be. We're a part of that. We're caught up in a high cost environment at the moment. But I'm happy with it. Not everyone can afford it. Most businesses are struggling, but it's the right thing to do now.
It's good. Tracy.
Just reiterate that we're in a really hard place to make some, or however you slice it, some very unpopular decisions with certain groups in our community. But I guess the big thing for me is that I want, and it was brought up today, I want the community to know that we have heard, we have listened. We've heard around this table multiple times. We've heard through the submission process. We've heard through our local groups, through the community involvement that all of us that sit around this table that we have. We've heard at the supermarket, we've heard at the local pub, especially down in Wedderburn. We've heard at the petrol stations. And for a lot of us, we've actually heard around our own dinner tables from our families. So we have heard, I promise you, we've heard. It doesn't make the decision-making process any easier, but I just want the community to know that we have heard and we have listened.
Thanks, Tracy. Lindley.
I want to say too that I feel really devastated about the rate increase after thinking of my own family with their 3 wee kids, and I personally would do anything that they didn't have to face a rate increase. As we said before, Dunedin, Queenstown, West Coast, Invercargill, they've all got the same increases. The prices are driven mainly from government. We can't afford to have unsafe infrastructure and broken infrastructure. We've got to build the infrastructure to serve our huge growth that will bring in more ratepayers, which will even it out over time. The reason the world economy is such a mess comes back to COVID. In New Zealand, the company had to borrow so much money to get through the terrible times, the job losses and everything that went with it. The last government spent 1.5 billion on water that went nowhere. It just wasted money. small councils are the casualties of this. And right here, right now, is where we are. And I heard Mr. Eagle say before that we should be concentrating on infrastructure and growth, which is true if we should the rate increase. So we're really in a bind here. And if there's anything that we could do, I feel we would have done it.
Thanks, Stanley. Ian?
I don't think kicking the can down the road is an option. I think in the future we need to look closely at levels of service and what and how we're doing things.
Okay. Sarah?
As a ratepayer about to get a bigger bill, I'm horrified at the potential of it, and hand on heart, I probably can't pay it. Doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and say we shouldn't do it, because right now, what else do we do? And next year's worse, year after's worse. I had a real hard conversation with my kids out and say, Kiwi say there's something I can stop right now to pay the rates. Probably when I'm older though, if the pension's gone. You know, grey house up there, totally agree with them. Fixed income. Fixed income for a lot of low salary earners, nurses, teachers, council staff. You know, fixed income isn't just a pension. There's a hell of a lot of people that are bound by that, me included. And that's really hard. But I came to sit at this table because I wanted to know more, and I'm pleased I am here. Because it's hard and people just don't get it. And now I feel like I get it better and I can explain it better, and I don't like it, but it's justifiable. And it's bloody hard for everybody. But if we sit here and say, it is what it is, that's unlucky, no, you can't pay it, that's where we've got the opportunity to be helpful, to be, it's that wellbeing side of things, it's everything else that the council needs to do more of, not put up costs that we need to pay. And that's what it comes down to. Do we have to pay for this stuff now? Will we suffer for it? Yes, we do. We can't do it anymore. God, I've listened to some stuff that's opened my eyes in the last few months, but we've got to pay that. There's nothing else we can do. I think I'm really impressed with how much work's been done to get that cost down. 18, if anything, I'd say the generalised percentage is a tough one to swallow, because when you do, you calculate and realise how much it actually is. If anything, that would be the thing that I think we need to look at. Our communication of that. You look at 18%, think I can afford that, and then when I do the calculator, it's quite a bit more. That is something that we possibly could do better in future, because it's not 18% from what I've seen for a lot of people. But that, I mean, we need a general figure, but it is what it is, and I think I'm really pleased to be part of this from the inside and to share that. And as hard as that is, I don't think any of us resigning over that helps, because I think being on the inside is a good thing. Everybody around the table, I'm really comfortable to be in this group and to be making that decision. And it isn't a nice one, but good on us all.
Thanks, Sarah. Sure.
Yeah, like Sarah, I mean, I'm not happy about paying the rate increase. But I do think that Lynley actually summed it up really beautifully. I think that we've had a number of things that have come across in my time. Didn't expect COVID, which sent the prices through the roof. Didn't expect legislation. Didn't expect the outcome of 5 deaths in Hawks and Headlock North to have such a huge impact on our infrastructure. I also think that we have to look back beyond what this council has done and look back to the health services that in previous governments have always known that councils have not been compliant necessarily with their water infrastructure. And year after year after year, they allowed that to continue. And now the shit hit the fan. And effectively, we have to do something, and we don't, I don't like it. I don't like that I'm offending, you know, like we talk about like you said about your own, you sit around your own table. It's not good in my house. So I cannot. But, you know, But I can't see anything else. You can't kick the can down the road all the time, you know? You have to draw a line in the sand and we've got to go. We've just got to do it.
Thanks, Cheryl. Nigel?
So, for me, I just say to myself that 81% of the increases that make up that 18% of rates is in roading, three waters and waste costs. And the majority of those costs are outside our control. And the majority of those costs are being driven by decisions of central government. So for us to make savings, we're looking at the last 19% of what this council does as an organisation, and that is in the area of libraries and pools and museums. And yes, you can make difficult decisions, but at the moment we're being that 80% rate rise is being driven primarily by things that are outside our control. So, like everyone else, we don't like it, but short term there is nothing to be done about it. We've got a broken funding model.
Emma?
As some other people have highlighted, these rates increases have been brewing for many years, and it's not just about pensioners. We've got families working multiple jobs. We've got young people supporting family finances alongside attending high school, and many of those young people will never own their own home and probably won't get a pension by the time they are of pension age, whatever that will be when it comes. And I think we're continually being asked to cut our cloth to fit. But it's very difficult when the design, materials and timeframe for completion are being specified by central government or by our resource consent conditions. I like that it's been highlighted that we need to spread the cost of infrastructure across generations with intergenerational debt. And I just think it's unfortunate that this cost spread needs to start today.
Thank you, everyone. Obviously plenty on this, so I don't really intend to say a lot more. I guess the only thing I will say, and I'll emphasise why I got a little bit toey with the President of Grey Power, to say that people around this table, both councillors and elected members, don't care about this is just absolutely unacceptable. We all care. But we can't give the support that a lot of people want. The only way that we could reduce where we're at now is to kick that can down the road, to run at a deficit and pay the interest on that, or to not fund our depreciation and let the next generation pay for it. And there has been too much of that behaviour by the local government sector in New Zealand. And as you say, Cheryl, encouraged by central government that said she'll be right, don't worry about adhering to the drinking water standards until people died. It sucks. But as everybody's indicated, what do we do? There's always a simple answer to complex problems, but those simple answers will always be wrong. All right, anything else, anybody? With that, I'd just like to thank staff for the huge amount of work that's gone into it in some really trying circumstances. And that's across the organisation, from Peter at the top to everybody, because I think as elected members have copped it, so have staff people from a public that doesn't understand, is growing in understanding, but still doesn't understand, or is getting delivered bad news, even whether they understand it or not. So I really appreciate that everything that's been done. To all the elected members, and particularly the councillors that I have the privilege of being in charge of, I'm extremely grateful for the sensible, calm and intelligent way that you've approached this hideous problem, and that we're looking at it front on, and that we're making mokopuna decisions around this table and not decisions that are looking more at the near future. With that, you had an extra little bit that you're going to put up, which will be a clause.
So it's just a B.
It's going to be, it's a new B, is it?
It's a new B. I'm going to put it up there.
Righto.
Just so it doesn't get lost.
Okay.
So that's the new bit. Everything else we've done.
Right, so I will move B through to, what's the last one now?
But have you done A?
B through to.
Have you done A?
Oh no, good point. I'll move A through to J. L. I'll move A through to L and ask my deputy mayor Neil to second that.
Yeah, I'm sure the recommendations within that, but halfway down will come out of the resolution that it is recommended that the settle rate, they'll come out.
The what?
Which bit?
above G.
Oh, yeah.
It's not recommended.
It's not recommended, it's, we'll resolve that.
Yeah.
So I just, I do, your worship, and endorse your comments.
Thank you. Any further, anybody? With that, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you again, everybody. Right, with a great deal of joy and pleasure, I hand the chair over to Nigel for the next paper.
Thank you, Mayor. We have item 34.8.3 on page 32, topic feedback on the waste management minimisation plans. And you have Abby and Lauren to speak to that. One of them. Thank you.
This report covers the feedback received from the public consultation on the waste management minimisation plan 2024 to 2030, which further brought before the WMNP. I'll take the report as read, but I'd just like to summarise. We had 40 submissions during the consultation period, with over 90% of the survey respondents being supported with the range of actions that were laid out to the draft WMNP. Of the results we received through the survey, pretty much as expected, but one result that we found quite interesting was that we discussed in the report was that there was less support than we were expecting for the creation of a community grant fund. The waste team have opted to keep this in as part of a planned action for the WMNP, considering it a very worthwhile use of the waste management fund that the team presented to government. Having a waste minimisation grant fund is common practice among councils, as it offers an opportunity for individuals, organisations and businesses to apply for funding for projects that promote, educate and achieve waste minimisation within their district. The results of the consultation have not resulted in any changes to the proposed actions of the WMNP. There's been a minor change to the wording, action 2.4 in table 4. This just enhances the clarity of how we're just going to make some measurements of waste diversion from landfill. As noted in the financial considerations, the funding for various actions in the WMNP comes from a variety of sources, but the main source of funding is the waste living funding from central government. Does anyone have any questions I'd like to ask?
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I thought that was quite interesting too, that people were not recognising the sample size as enthusiastic about a community grant, and I wondered if you thought that that highlighted that people want council to be owning and driving this.
Potentially, I think maybe we didn't explain it enough, so they didn't see what it could be. We actually think it'll be great because it will enable communities to do the waste minimisation that suits them best. Council messaging is all very well and good, but there's always people that we won't and can't reach, but they might be able to be reached through a rugby club initiative or a schools initiative or something else like that. So we just think that the broaden the voices and enable us to get the information to people.
And second question, I just wondered if there's a comment in there around the recycle a device program, and I wondered, does that only apply to laptops or does it also apply to iPads and phones? And
no, there's quite tight criteria about what they'll take. They used to take laptops up to 10 years old. They've recently just changed that to laptops 5 years old. It also, we have the recycler device scheme gets laptops and things that are able to be reused into school groups and things like that, that teaches the students how to refurbish the device as well as then passing the advice on the students need. We don't have any schools locally who would do that, so it would need to be transported to the school district. But we still think it's a good thing that we could offer. It's sort of a free service that runs alongside the e-waste collection.
Could that potentially be picked up and then a school that was interested in doing that for our area could apply to the grant to marvellous.
Any other question? Neil?
Should we be concerned with 34 people responding, 17 of which are older than 60 and only 4 under 40 responded? Is there an issue out there somehow?
We did look at who responded. We did try and give people a variety of options. We had drop-in in-person sessions at all the libraries, variety of times, weekend one and a weekday one. We had targeted things. We held a business breakfast for contractors and tradespeople, because we really like to engage with those. We went to all the business breakfasts around the district. We did try and there must be another way of making it.
Did we put it on YouTube Short?
No,
Certainly not a criticism at all. No. But what I guess I'm disappointed and somewhat surprised that the under 40s, 4 of them still fit, because they're the ones, in my view, that have the biggest potential impact on going forward. And I'm going, hell, but it seems consistent. And you know, just raise it because, say, if it's in the back of our minds, we might think of other ways to do it and might better get that, but I don't know. We can lead the horse to water and you know, we can't make them, but we need to encourage them. So, no, not a criticism, just want to make sure.
No, but you're right. It's interesting where this one's.
Yeah. How much weighting does that have on?
We just, as it's a self-selecting group, we just have to take the responses that we get. Unfortunately, we don't necessarily wait. We did try and make sure that we had equal coverage in all the wards. We tried to get equal coverage in that way.
And all of them have a relevant?
Not all the people who responded, not necessarily, no. They're perfectly able to comment because they still pay the waste management charge, even if they're recommending for the first collection charges. It's open to anyone who's interested.
Okay. Just probably a couple of comments thinly disguised as questions, but page 33, the talk about re-establishing wastebusters, and I've heard that a lot myself, but what I'm wondering is if feedback outside of this, which is very binary, wastebusters went broke badly twice. Are people keen on having it back because of the ethos? Or is there simply there that it was a really good place to get cheap stuff, which is part of the reason that it went broke twice? What is are you finding as the driver you're hearing for a return of something like that? Because if it does come back, it probably won't be to survive, can't be the old cheapo place to pick up things that it was, unfortunately.
Well, I think it needs to offer a range of things as well as a shop that reads stuff. I mean, there are plenty of off shops in the district that offer those sorts of services. I think that if it was a reuse shop, it would be a full resource recovery centre. So it would offer a range of services as well. It's a difficult thing to operate, and all around the country, resource recovery centres and community-led things like that do struggle with funding, partly because their main purpose is to reduce waste to landfill, not to make a profit. So they've always got that sort of line between the two. But a variety of educational courses, workshops, construction and demolition, reclaim, those sorts of things might give some extra income.
Yeah, sounds exciting. And the other one is page 67, where we talk about 447 kilos per person per year in 22-23. I went back to the 12-13 annual plan, and I think I read it was 910 kilos a person there. So we're just under half. Does that sound right to you?
Yes.
What a fantastic result. Still want to make progress, but wow, 10 years, halved it. Magnificent. Congratulations.
We've seen some great results from the green bins as well. So.
Yeah.
So on that, because I was going to bring that up, why do we have to have the education when actually the dollar value of what we're doing it anyway?
How much of that success came through the education?
The levy is coming from central government. Legislative requirements around using that.
I mean, and your comments about the wastebusters is 8 comments, so 8 people can control the thinking about a whole retail shop, or is that just in the report?
That's just in the report. I have heard a lot outside that, like you say, in the supermarket and at petrol stations and walking down the streets, and that's the question people want to ask me most is.
The first 6 years of my council being, and there was a lot of discussion how we could stop the bleeding of wastebusters.
Yeah, it would need.
And when you look at rate increases at 18%, they were the things we had to cut out then to stop us having 80% then. Maybe 5%, 2%. Enough.
No, what is the money figures for the levy?
The waste levy, as of the 1st of July 2024, the waste levy is $60 a tonne, depends on landfill.
No, sorry, the money, how much do we get from central government?
The vice president, they were getting about 122,000 per kitchen. But that is slowly increasing is obviously only because of,
Yeah.
The levy's increased about 5 times since 2020, like 5 times 5, and we've got about a 4 and 3/4 time increase in that as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? No? So thank you for a comprehensive report. And we've got recommendations A and B. A receives the report and accepts the level of significance. B adopts the waste management and minimisation plan 2024-2030. Do I have a mover? Cheryl and Tamer. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favour?
Aye.
Yes, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Evan. Lauren, you've got you for second item, which is 34.8.4. And careful how you say this, the Chit process review. It's on page 88.
The take report is read, but it's in summary, council's offered chits or vouchers for free disposal of general waste and green waste since at least the year 2018. And these have been issued to community groups who have done massive cleanups, including illegal dumping and green waste in their public spaces. And they've also been issued to residents who have issues with their food collection. But what we've seen over the last 6 years is a significant rise in the cost to dispose of these items. And while we want to maintain support, what we're finding is we need to formalise how we issue these to ensure that our budgets can cover. So yeah, we have listed 4 options for council to consider, but there'll be good questions.
If you, any questions, comments, Neil?
Yeah, I want to find I wrote a comment here. What does it say? Oh, yeah, relevant and more just the background. When lots of councils emptying public rubbish tins and those things, we pay as well. Yeah, so which is fine. So yeah, so just a question. I thought there's other costs, but we can't get a check for ourselves.
Sorry. No, we can't.
So look at a way to save some money.
Well, public litter bins don't currently sit under the waste bin.
Yeah.
So,
the option that's recommended is to up to 1 tonne of general waste or 1 tonne of green waste. Is there some, if I missed it, if it's in the report I missed, I'm sorry. Is there any logic, or is that just a number?
To be honest, it was just a number because we thought, well, we still want to provide something. Rather than nothing.
Because I would suspect it seems almost generous.
And that is.
So you might be coming back in another 12 months saying, actually, it didn't make any change to behaviours or ever. Okay, cool.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah. Regards the potential for missed bins. What's the circumstance that you missed bin?
In most cases now, with our new contractor, missed bins are usually around items being stuck in bins, whether it be frozen or someone's wedged something in there. We still want to help them by have that bin being collected, but in some cases I can't. So still providing some solution is better than not.
In the reality, we would have got that rubbish anyway.
Yes.
Sorry, that recycling.
Careful. Okay. So that seems reasonably straightforward. So we've got 2 recommendations. Recommendation A receives the report, accepts the level of significance. B approves the recommended option for issuing transfer station chits.
I would suggest that we'd actually put that option in the resolution.
Yes, which is option 1.
Yeah. Wayne might have prepared it earlier.
I had prepared it earlier.
Did you prepare it earlier?
I had prepared it earlier. There it is right there.
I'm glad to get things prepared earlier. Okay, so we now have continue offering chits and properties rated as receiving curbside collection. Services are reported within 24 hours of the curbside collection date if their bins have been missed due to an error by the contractor, and support free disposal of general waste and or green waste for community groups that have capped a cost for 1 tonne of funeral waste or 1 tonne of green waste for 1 km per group per financial year. Comprehensive. Okay. Do I have a mover and a second?
I'll move it.
Casey's moved it. Who was second? Any further discussion? Comments? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
You
Okay.
can't get beat, can
Thank you, guys.
Can we do that again?
Thank you, Nigel. We now have plan change 22, Neil.
Thank you, Your Worship, and for that, and I actually just came back. Well, perfect timing. I seen you leave the room. That'll be interesting. Item 24.8.5 is plan change 22, which is the dark sky. And this is a report recommending the adoption of the hearings panel decision. So I'll ask Anne to give the report, please.
So plan 22 provides for a new section in district plan, section 20, which is a light chapter. So this comes out of some considerable amount of work done by community planning group called Naseby Vision, started in 2016, who had an aspiration to create a dark sky precinct in the Naseby area. To do so requires changes to the district plan for the IDA to even consider them for the being able to be established as a dark sky section. So plan change 22 is consistent with the national planning standards. So the format is, again, you probably would have noticed that all the plan changes we're doing now, we're changing the format of the each chapter. So it complies with the national planning standards, hence the light name rather than the dark sky, although we have called it dark sky in brackets. So part of what this does, rather than just focusing on Naseby, what we've done is we've taken the work that Naseby Vision did, crafted it into a chapter that can be applied across the entire district in time and through a precinct basis. So the first precinct is Naseby, and that it does about the framework that we've created through chapter 20 will enable that to be established elsewhere in time. One of the submitters at the hearing in support was somebody from the Charis community group. They also have some aspirations. And so we've created that framework which would enable it rather than it just being specific to Naseby. Submissions were generally supportive. There was a couple of submissions that asked for some minor changes. Federated farmers were interested in whether or not they captured the pivot irrigators and things, and it doesn't because they're vehicles. It's just vehicles, so it doesn't capture some of that. And there was also somebody from who's Dr. Barry Wills has submitted to ask for a much lower standard than the IDA had indicated. The panel has stayed with the recommendations that came through from the IDA, so stayed with those rather than lowering it any further. It's about it. So the panel is seeking approval for the ratification decision and approval to make final.
Thanks, Anne. Any questions that anybody has?
I just wanted to check the plan change complies with the international communication standards.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll say it was quite a different process for the panel with what we've been through for plan change 19. Very, very different. And we'll look on tomorrow, which is doing different again. But I guess the key thing for me is that this sort of plan change is quite unique, and I didn't know that the RMA authors back in the 90s actually thought that this would be something that would even be contemplated in a different plan. None of any of us ever did it this room, this table. But you know, I think now that we are protecting our skies and that our community thought that was important enough. And you know, I've got to say to Naseby Vision, the work that has been done by that group to get to this stage has been significant. And it's, to me, it's a message to any community group out there. If you really want something, you have the passion to drive it and make it happen, then you can do it. You can change the district plan. You know, people think that's really hard. Well, actually, it was really hard, but it got there. Took a bit, and I guess good thing is, I think, is that what we picked up is that it set the framework for the future as well. Who knows where it's going to be next, you know? And it's quite surprising, I think, with the recent stuff we've seen with auroras and things, looking at the night sky and seeing the different peaks you get, and then you see them with lights, the at work sites or whatever, it is quite different. So, someone like to move that? No.
I'll second it. People are many turning and changing a few distant plans.
Okay.
Yeah. Wouldn't mind
You mind, Hannah? Like appease them? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Moved by Lindley, seconded by Stu. Any more conversation, discussion, or do you want something to say? Sorry.
Yeah, after attending the Winterstellar opening on the weekend, which was just magnificent, the photographs that people were getting and that recognition that for many people, they will never see the stars in their entire lives the way we view them here. And I'm really excited for Naseby. I think this is wonderful. So great work to the panel and to the community.
Really had the easy, sorry, the panel had the easy part.
That's Naseby Vision and Naseby Dark Sky, but it's since 2016 we've done that, and the wonderful job we've done. And both sides one of these guys that Naseby
Money a total.
Yeah, thank you. Right, been moved by Lindley, seconded by Stu. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Anne, for you and the team to pull that report together. Made our job of the panel a lot easier too. Thank you. And Adam as the report writer.
Yeah. Oh, well done.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Neil. Tamer, what was yours?
Marvellous. We welcome Gordon Bailey and David Skearns to talk to us about the Neplusultra Street Reserve Management Plan.
Thank you. This is a procedural matter under delegation from the Minister of Conservation to approve the amendments to the Neplusultra Street Reserve Management Plan was absolutely by the Commission board.
Do we have a choice?
Yes, but I don't know that it'd be the smartest choice to go with the recommendation. I think it was a tidy up of what was not foreseen to be a challenge when we said, yes, let's have a toilet in a logical location. Yeah.
The scary thing is I can remember sort of saying, we don't need a toilet in this place, we can go down to the toilets just down there.
Yeah, and that was before you had to count your grandchildren down there every time somebody needed to go to the toilet with the bike park.
I'm not taking my grandchildren there, am I? Oh, so they have work.
Unstuck. Any questions for Gordon or David? Someone happy to move
I
it?
would be happy to.
Neil, seconded. Thank you, Cheryl. Have some favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. That's awesome. Create a wonderful facility for our community. Moving to page 184. Oh, yes, you are there. Hiding behind Sarah. Welcome. Thank you. And Louise.
Thank you. I'll take it as the report's been read, regarding the budget, anticipated budget over the years of the toilets. And the drivers, they increased the level of service, increased operational costs and vandalism, not just the water. So since I've written the report, we've had a further 4 incidences, which is really disappointing. 3 at Pioneer Park, 1 at Anderson Park and 1 at Alpha Street. So that's adding another 2K at least onto it overspend. The police, I can update you, the police have investigated the big incidences. We report all our vandalism to the police. So the big high cost ones, especially, and the ones that have been caught on CCTV camera, they have looked into it and can't definitively either A, identify the suspect, or B, actually prove that that person seen going in was the actual person who did the damage. So we have no evidence there, unfortunately, but we will continue to be reporting all of those vandalism incidences.
So just add there quickly, we have identified some of the youth. So it's gone over to the police, and the police are going to be having a chat with them and obviously their parents. So that should stop it moving forward. But because we can't put a camera inside the toilet, privacy reasons and stuff, so we just we can't actually prove that they do. And we are putting some controls in place now. I think the engineers in we've designed a bit of a bracket that the doors will be hanging on from now on. So they won't just be, because they're quite heavy, sturdy doors, they won't be easy just to pull down now. We'll roll them up with proper hinges and they can swing on them, they won't break them in the future.
How many kids have been looking at, if they are kids or people, should we say?
So we had one group of 5, we had a group of 2, and I'll be honest, they like, I'll be honest with you, it's like online, Louise always picks it up. Yeah. The kids are ranging between 12 and 14, 15, you know, youngsters, and just getting up for show. The problem is just costing us a bomb.
Sure. Is there any way that we can learn these things and actually do this through the schools, assemblies, or, you know, if it is being juveniles that are doing that, or you suspect they're the ones, surely in going to the schools and actually talking to them and different, you know, doing an assembly. I mean, this is something everybody.
Oh,
The next option is closed up. Well, then you're not going to be here, are they? So is there a way that there could be a message through the schools to ensure that the kids can just.
So I think we'll work with the police in that respect. So they do put remediation programs in place for these kids. And the incident in Cromwell where they tried to set fire to the youth centre, we caught their child and he did a year's community service. And the police came back to me and said that he had actually reformed quite well and it turned his life around. So sometimes it's just a little bit of that and a little bit of nurturing. I would love to name and shame, but that creates a whole.
You have my approval.
Sorry.
You have my approval.
But it creates a whole lot of problems that are associated with that. So I think the police are trained to deal with this type of situation, and we just let them follow their guide. I think they do go speak to the school as well and involve the principal and deputy principals and show them all the footage, so they know who the offenders are. And the cameras are crystal clear.
Nigel.
I just got a question. You noted that the Target Street toilets are going to be closed and the cost it's just under $30,000 to do that. I noticed it's simplistic, but my arithmetic says that 12 out of the 55 vandalism incidents were on Tower Street, and if you it's an average price per incident, others 12 incidents out of a total of $32,000 cost, it's actually costing you more to have security supervised Target Street than it is to let vandalism occur, which so what I'm saying is that if you make the assumption that a vandalism incident, each one is the same, which I know they're not, but then 12 incidents equals $8,000. Cost of security is $30,000.
But it's not just Target Street, it's Alexandra, Beary's toilets, Molyneux Playground toilets, Golden Block toilets.
I'm not. So I just read there's only Target Street.
No, it's a group of toilets.
Okay. Yeah, and even then, I'm not actually recommending that you maybe not close them, but it just seemed $30,000.
So it's a cost, right? And that's why we just didn't roll it out, because we needed to actually budget for this.
Yeah.
You know, for a security company to send someone around at whatever time of night and lock up the toilets, it's just a cost associated with that.
Yeah. No, except there are other reasons, not just trying to stop that.
Yeah.
We're going to have a toilet in our library in 6 months' time, which is about 200 metres away from the Target Street one, as consideration being given just to show. So if they're going to be closed at night to avoid vandalism, and we've got another toilet turn tops 100 metres away during the day.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to be looking at this in an overall picture. And a lot of the work that we're going to be doing now to inform the LTP is going to be looking at all toilets and what. There's also smart technology coming, you know, or out there already where you can automatically lock a toilet. So if you, the major, you design your toilet that you can have that facility in place, then it's not going to cost us to have toilets shut because it's just done via a remote or a time block type scenario. So there is that technology there already. It's a big capital outlay up front for a whole lot of toilets. We'd rather just start nipping in the bud as we go along.
It's also the technology to monitor your children too.
So that the toilets, so we've obviously been involved with these toilets before, you can get out of the toilet. So you take them out.
Of course, that's an obvious solution.
If the compliance monitoring had gone up quite a bit, in particular at Champagne Gully and Little Creek, is there any ability for more automation or technology to be used, or has it already been used to reduce those costs?
That's another OIC do that work for us.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, look, Champagne Gully is an interesting one. If you look at the graph on the water usage and stuff, we've breached basically our resource consent quite a bit. And I've made a small modification to the tank because what was happening was the stopcock was down at the bottom, and then of course you get this massive full to get it. So I'll move the stopcock up to the top, so we're just getting a trickle feed.
Yeah.
It's making no difference. It's just a really highly used facility. It's not that easy just to change the resource consent, although I did suggest that to my stock and order the other day. But I think we will work through that because we actually need to look at usage, and then it's,
Just part of that tie to the kind of camping facilities that are there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it will reduce costs in that respect.
Right. Any further questions? Yeah.
The whole banning thing is absolutely disappointing and really, probably can't say I really think, because I might use some words that someone else used that were inappropriate. I am surprised by one thing. The terrace toilets aren't that old. I am gobsmacked as to how much use they get. Like they're almost matching Lode Lane. And I'm going, where do those people used to go? School. Well,
That's where they do.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, clearly, it's the right place to have one, which is a good thing out of that. And I'm assuming that Dunstan Park toilets is Dustin Park. That buys the ones.
I wondered if that was.
Yeah, sorry. I just picked up.
that's my typo.
Yeah, but you put that there, so I find it. Yeah, it's got the. Yeah, well, I didn't listen to those.
Now, is there any chance of, if you do find or prosecute the vandals, that there's the appearance of it as kids, will they have to pay?
I certainly we ask for reparation if we get that opportunity. I've been through the process at Ranford and we've had meetings with parents. This was over previous vandalisation a while ago, a couple of years ago, and we did seek it, but if the parents got no ability to pay, they've got no ability to pay. And the police do a recommendation on that. Definitely. And absolutely, we would have been seeking reparation if we could have got approval.
I think it's a sad day when you are target hardening public toilets, but probably that's where we're going to get the best bang for buck, is actually just making it incredibly difficult, which is disappointing because sometimes it makes them not the most enjoyable facility to be using.
But the saddest part is actually 0.01% of the rate increase. So we've justifying ourselves that where these rates come from, and I never knew that number is, till you read it, so that's a lot of money, $32,000 plus all the extra work we've got to do to try to mitigate that. It's a real cost, Bangland's a real cost in our community. It's a part of our rate increase.
Know where your children are.
I know where they are.
Well, I know what they're doing. Because he sees the checkbook.
Someone moved that the report be received. Thanks, Sarah and Nigel, seconded. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, yeah.
To the second.
I was going to say, really, it's really impressive. You can get no credit.
Was a team effort.
All right, well, adjourn for lunch. I think it says 12:55, but let's come back at 1 because that's a lot easier for us.
Yep.
One, huh?
We'll get told that we will pay anyway.
I forgot.